Thank you, Spirit Choir. I just want to say that it's completely normal that there's more people up here than there is here. We have an amazing music program here at Neighborhood, and when the Spirit Choir sings, it is over half the congregation up here. Welcome to your Neighborhood Unitarian Universalist Sunday service. Thank you for joining us, whether you're here in person, with us on Zoom, or watching a recording in the future. If you're joining us for the first time, know that you are welcome here, as is everyone seeking a spiritual community. Our mission at Neighborhood is to empower spiritual growth and shared action for the care of our world. My name is Gordon Thorne. I'll be your service weaver this morning. For those of us in person, please remember to be aware of the various needs and boundaries of one another while we are gathered together, honoring our mask-required seating area, which is over here, keeping aisles clear for mobility devices, and only taking photos with permission. We are a community of many ages and abilities, which means we embrace whatever little noises and distractions come with being together. And we are committed to a love that makes space for all. If you have a phone or other device that can be silenced, I invite you to do that now, unless it's needed in order to access and participate in the service. Please know that our services are usually about 90 minutes long, and if there's anything you need to make yourself comfortable in the space, sit, stand, stretch, pace, fidget, get a glass of water, please feel free to do so at any point. That includes going into our wiggle room, which is the little room in there. And in there's some toys and a comfy couch, or to the activity table over in the side there where Rev Sally is, where we have art supplies and a kinetic sandbox. If you're new and would like to keep in touch, please fill out a newcomer card, which you'll find in the back of the seats in front of you. And then put it in the offering plate when it's passed around during offering later. Whoever you are, wherever you are in your relationship to belief, spirituality, or this community, we are glad you are here today. In a few moments, it will be time to greet your neighbors. After you greet a few neighbors, turn to the camera on the back wall, that's right next to the projector up there, and offer a greeting to those who join us virtually, whether in present on Zoom or in the future via the recording. You'll hear a chime at the end. Actually, you'll hear Suzanne playing at the end. Now take a moment to greet the neighbors around you. Okay, maybe you can find a seat and settle down. I always remember that Reverend Pat Trudeau used to say that greet your neighbors should be enough time to say hello to somebody, but not long enough to have a meeting. Our First Nations have historically been dealt with unfairly, even though we are guests on this land. Equity begins with an acknowledgement that the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation are the treaty holders of this land that we stand on, and that the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, lived here before me and are living here now, together with other First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. So let's first create sacred space together by reading our invocation, which are projected above me. Join me. Let us cast the circle of a sacred space here. Let us cast the circle of a cherished space here. A space of safety, a place of forgiveness, a place of love. If we want the world to change, we must craft in our space and in ourselves the seeds that grow a different kind of life. A life of graciousness, of creative intelligence, a place of life and spirit for ourselves and our families. This morning I've asked Bruce Line to come up and light our chalice flame for us. This practice Bruce will be taking the light from the children's flame and lighting the neighborhood chalice. This practice honors each child as a vital part of our community. The children's chalice will be taken back after the Time for All Ages to the Rainbow Room and used for the Children's Zone program. Sing with us.
Good morning. Our first song today is a song by the amazing Ise Barneswell. And I've been asked to introduce the song by saying a little bit about Ms. Barneswell. Ise Barneswell, when I did a little bit of research on her, one of the things that stood out for me is just how varied her career has been. She's very well known, I think most well known for as a member of Sweet Honey in the Rock. But her career also includes being a professor at the School of Dentistry at Howard University. She has been the head of community service programs serving children in Washington. She's done many amazing things. And she founded the Jubilee Singers Choir at All Souls Unitarian Church in Washington, which apparently is where Sweet Honey in the Rock first met her and included her in the choir. The song today, Spiritual, speaks of, I noticed as I was listening to the song, there's a tension in the song. In the chorus, there's an acknowledgement of this insecurity and the fragility of life. We never know what's coming our way. And in the verses, there's an invitation to fight for change in those moments when change is possible. So I invite you, as you're listening to that song, in relation to the times we're in, that perhaps this is that one of those moments where change is possible and we're being called to action.
Altitudes, altitudes, alta ones, enemy, race, hatred, and hate. And I'm telling you again, no one know at sunrise how this day is going to end. And I'm telling you, can't no one know at sunset if the next day will begin. And I'm telling you, can't no one know at sunrise how this day is going to end. And I'm telling you, can't no one know at sunset if the next day will begin.
Thank you again, Spirit Choir. It's with great pleasure that I welcome back a great friend of our congregation, Kofi Hope, who will be giving his message this morning, and the Spirit Choir that always graces us with amazing music. Our neutral slide this morning is an image of a facade of an old building being held up and supported by metal buttresses. It is an image that speaks to our monthly theme. Each month, we present a different one of our eight principles. This month, we tackle the eighth principle, which is, we affirm and promote individual and communal action that accountably dismantles racism and systemic barriers to full inclusion in ourselves and in our institutions. Neighborhood overwhelmingly adopted this principle even before the Canadian Unitarian Congress, but the work of dismantling racism and systemic barriers is not clear-cut. What is equity and diversity to some is seen as unfair advantage by others, to the point where there has been huge pushback on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. It's even been branded as wokeness and ridiculed and dismissed. And so we seem to be living in a post-DEI world where it can look like all the gains we have fought for in recent years appear like they have been rolled back and discarded. As citizens, as members of a progressive faith, as individuals, what can we do? In the words of Rebecca Ann Parker, your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reach of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting, any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. And any of these can also draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure the holy, comply with injustice, and withhold love. You must answer this question. What are you going to do with your gifts?
Morning, everyone. We're going to sing. That's one of our gifts that we're going to do this morning. We have a couple of songs that they're singing in the streets in Minneapolis right now. The one that we opened with, Hold On, we'll have a chance to all sing that together later in the service. And this song, which we've sung here many times, which was written in 2016 when the leader of the country south of us was first elected, and continues to be sung for many different causes and is being sung on the streets of Minneapolis, or has been. This is One Foot Lead with Love by Melanie DeMore. I invite you to rise, if you're willing, able. how the song works is we all sing the chorus together, and then for the verses, it's a call and response. I have some friends here I know that know this song too. Gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead. My turn. With love. Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Don't you give up. Keep a moving on. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Lift up your eyes. Lift up your eyes. Don't you despair. Don't you despair. Look up ahead. Look up ahead. The path is there. The path is there. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. I know you're scared. I know you're scared. And I'm scared too. And I'm scared too. But here I am. But here I am. Right next to you. Right next to you. Here we go. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. With love and lead with love and lead with love and lead with love and lead with love. Woo! Yes. Thanks, everyone.
All right, good morning. Oh, wow.
Hi.
Loud voice. Good morning. My name is Rev Sally. I'm delighted to serve as the minister of this congregation. And this morning, I'm delighted to serve as your Rainbow Room volunteer and leading the part of the service. Hi, I can look at you when I'm wearing this. Leading the part of the service that is intended to be appealing for a wider range of ages and stages and learning styles. So this morning, our time for all ages, really for all ages, because it's for people who are kids now and people who remember being kids watching a little show called Sesame Street. Has anyone heard of this show? So for today's service, I wanted to share with you that this service is being brought to you by the letters D, E, and I. So first, it's being brought to you by the letter D. And I dropped a letter D around here somewhere earlier. Has anyone seen a letter D? Denise! Denise had my letter D. Thank you so much, Denise. What are some good words that start with D that we can come up with?
Diversity.
Shh, you're giving it away. Democracy is great. Dinosaurs. What about dancing? That's what Grover's showing us right now. David. Well, this D stands for, as the choir members already called, stands for diversity. Diversity meaning when there's all kinds of differences that are included in a group and you can all be different from one another and still part of an included family. So there's another letter. What did I say it was? This is brought to you by the letter E, but I lost my E somewhere around here. Can anyone help me find it? That's true, but where is my E that I dropped? Maybe somewhere near an electrical cord. That starts with E. Aha! Right here. Okay, what are some good words that start with E? I think equanimity, Elmo. I can't, elephant, Elvis. Energy, engage. Oh, these are all great E words, but this E stands for equity. And equity is kind of like equality, but equality might mean treating everyone the same. Equity means making sure everyone has the resources and support that they need so that they can have the same type of welcome and the same experience. So that picture is, does anyone recognize that Muppet? That is a Muppet named Julie, who's the first autistic Muppet. And she wears ear protection so that she doesn't get sensory overwhelm when she's playing with her friends. It's a great example of equity. Not everyone has to wear ear protection, but that's one way she can access fun playtime with her friends. All right, got one more letter somewhere around here. Letter I. Maybe it's somewhere near a source of illumination. Somewhere around this illuminated area. Aha! Right here. There's my I. What are some good words that start with I? Intelligence, ice cream. Inclusive, India. These are all great I words, and this I stands for inclusion. So we have diversity, equity, and inclusion. Inclusion meaning making sure everyone is welcome and is brought into the groups that you're in and knows that they are wanted there. So together we have, remember them with me? For diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you so much. These letters have been well loved by all of you here, and it's thanks to them that we have today's service. So thank you very much. And with that, I will take our lantern, and any kids or families who want to join me in the Rainbow Room are invited to follow as we sing them on their way.
Hello. Our next song, The Fires Fuel Our Fight, is the next song. Is a protest and a lament. The lyrics are adapted from the works of poet and activist Langston Hughes, and the music was created by Amanda Thomas, a powerful Chicago area UU music director who died of cancer last year. The Fires Fuel Our Fight is a gospel waltz. Whenever we see people waltzing on film, we know that we're about to enter a high caste realm of wealth and privilege. A common venue for waltzing is still the ballroom. And ballrooms have always been privileged bubbles where illnesses of prejudice, including misogyny, including slavery, are casually set aside. Maestro Thomas, just as casually, enters this fantasy space and artfully disrupts it. She pops the bubble. I think it is an act of subversive genius to take Langston Hughes' protest against cowardly, church-burning white supremacists and set it to a tune that the bourgeoisie class would historically dance to. So we present The Fires Fuel Our Fight. Just
Just a thank you to Ella, who's doing the solo in this song, and Olga for accompanying us at the piano.
Stop loving, stop leaving, but I don't care, I still leave. Cowards burn our churches in dead of night, death, despair, and racism try. Despair and racism try. Death, despair and racism try. Death, despair and racism try to hold us powerless, but the fires fuel our fight.
It's my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Kofi Hope. Kofi is a Rhodes Scholar and has a doctorate in politics from Oxford University. He's the co-founder of Monumental, a Toronto-based strategic advisory firm. Just some of his accomplishments are urbanist in residence at the University of Toronto School of Cities, an emeritus Boosfield Scholar with the Geography and Planning Department, and a senior fellow at the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy. Welcome, our great friend of our congregation, Kofi Hope.
Good morning, everyone. Morning. So honored to be here again at Neighborhood, and what a what a privilege to speak with you folks as you're reflecting on this commitment around taking individual and communal action that accountably dismantles racism and systemic barriers to full inclusion in ourselves and our institutions. Definitely a dense statement, but this intention of dismantling the systems that uphold racism and the barriers that prevent our spaces from becoming, to quote Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a beloved community where all are valued and embraced is certainly a very needed and necessary message in these difficult times. At the same time, we're also grappling with the fact that recent efforts to confront and dismantle racism have triggered a backlash so forceful and intense that it helped put a populist, fascist leader back in office who now threatens America's very democracy. So it is scary times. And I feel every time, I was looking back, every time I've come to Neighborhood over the last few years, I've spoken about difficult times, about a world growing increasingly dangerous. But now, friends, we are faced with something fundamentally different. When our Prime Minister went to Davos and spoke about a rupture taking place globally, he was not wrong. And perhaps even understated how dangerous the times are as violent ideologies of the past and present, whether it's Christian nationalism or white supremacy, fascist ideas, or those old hatrages like anti-Black racism, anti-Semitism, homophobia to aggressive misogyny, all of them coming back into the mainstream in front of our eyes. And as people of faith, people who take part in faith communities and are motivated by spiritual principles which affirm the dignity and value of every human life, this is a time, I would argue, that our ideas and voices are critical to achieving the goal of dismantling racism and systemic barriers. So today, I want to reflect on how we got here, how a newly revived movement to confront racism led to a backlash, and what this might teach us about how to keep the momentum going to end racism in all of our communities. So let's begin by taking a step back in time and remember May 25th, 2020, when the murder of George Floyd was broadcast all over the world. When a planet already reeling from the impact of a global pandemic was stirred into action by a terrible, terrible video, one I will admit I've still not watched nor have any desire to watch, but a terrible video of a citizen being executed callously in the streets of the world's richest country as civilians looked on and pleaded with the officer for mercy. Like in the civil rights movement before, the broadcast images of wanton violence in the streets of an American city stirred the conscience of a nation, and not just one nation, but countries all over the world, including our own. And in the United States, a populace forced to be at home by lockdowns with little opportunity to socialize and mingle channeled that latent energy into the largest protest movement in American history. An estimated 15 to upwards of 26 million people took part in Black Lives Matter marches that summer. Here in Canada, conversations around anti-Black racism, along with a national reckoning around our colonial history of oppression of Indigenous people, spurred similar responses, though not anywhere near the amount of people marching. But beyond being in the streets, this movement played out within organizations as universities, hospitals, bureaucracies, places of worship, and private companies all face demands from employees and stakeholders to acknowledge racism and other forms of oppression that existed within them and make concrete actions around change. And this moment, when you look at it, was truly a radical break. In opinion polling in the US, we saw a record 2/3 of Americans in 2020 said they supported Black Lives Matter. In Canada, if you look between 2019 and 2021, there were also big opinion shifts. In 2019, almost half of Canadians said anti-Black racism was not an issue in the country and was a thing of the past. And 73% said anti-Chinese racism was not an issue in the country. But by 2021, it had changed. Now, when you did the poll 2 years later in 2021, 2/3 of Canadians said they believed both anti-Black racism and anti-Chinese racism were real issues that had to be addressed in society. And as someone who is working in the equity field myself, I can tell you firsthand, for a moment, the amount of work that was available to individuals, and especially racialized individuals, who could speak to questions of anti-racism was unlimited. Entire companies were founded, including my own, with much of our first year and a half, because we started in 2020, was based on DEI-related contracts. Vice President of Equity and Inclusion roles were created overnight at every company. Task forces, town halls, statements, and commissions were launched, and anti-oppression trainings were conducted at a historic rate. And there were real impacts. I know so many Black business owners who over this period were shocked that for the first time in their careers, organizations were actually looking to hire them or give them contracts because they were Black-owned, not despite that fact. And racialized employees suddenly found companies could listen or at least give platform to the complaints and grievances they had spoken about for years. And they were finally acknowledged at the highest and most senior levels. It truly did seem back then like something transformative was happening. But I can say personally for myself and my business partner Zara, we were also quick to position our business as being a company that did a lot more than DEI work. Because for those of us who'd done this work for a bit of time, we'd seen this before, and we knew in our hearts the moment was not going to last. We'd seen too many cycles where an issue in the media caused a surge of a societal focus on issues of racism and oppression, only to have them fizzle out soon after. And this, to some extent, is what happened. We saw that in opinion polling in Canada and America. In Canada, over the last few years, we've seen a massive shift where people's focus on racism, it's gone to being one of the least important issues named, and more racist and bigoted views on issues of immigration have steadily increased. In the US, by as early as 2023, there was a massive drop in support for Black Lives Matter as a movement, and now this year, a whopping 75% of Americans said the work that happened after George Floyd had not had any positive impact on the lives of Black Americans. So public support everywhere for this work has gone down, just as many of those DEI positions have been canceled in organizations and equity statements removed from corporate websites. So what happened, friends? And what can we learn? Well, first and foremost, individuals who hold bigoted beliefs or ideologically didn't like identity politics or anti-racism work fought back. And many billionaires and highly wealthy individuals came together, specifically in the US, to organize anti-DEI campaigns, and that pushback expanded across the world. So I want to be clear, this isn't a story primarily about the failures of those of us who wanted to confront racism and deconstruct it. It's a story of a well-funded counter-movement that has gone on attack. But, that being said, we also have to be honest in that mistakes and missteps by anti-racism activists and champions also led to the failure of the movement to achieve long-lasting wins and helped make it easier for that backlash to take place. And it's worth mentioning some of those lessons as we think about how do we pick up the next stage in this struggle. So let me quickly share a few lessons. Lesson number one, we need to make our movement more invitational and inclusive. So I've been doing anti-racism training since I was 18 years old. And one of the biggest issues with this field, and I'll admit it as someone who's been a part of it, is that the trainings are not very successful. The research evidence now shows quite clearly that these trainings don't lead to changes many times in organizational cultures or beliefs. But despite that, running anti-racism training is the first thing every organization does when the issue is raised. But running training sessions that don't change people's minds, but simply reinforce the ideas of the true believers may be satisfying, but is not very effective. To truly change society, you have to change the minds of folks who don't agree with you. That's how you move the needle. But the problem is, rarely do you change people's minds by lecturing them, by wagging your finger at them, by telling them how ignorant they are. Actually, doing that is probably the most effective way to turn them against you. But despite this simple fact, right, that we all would know intuitively, so much of the training, discourse, and ideas that were platformed during the George Floyd moment did just that. They came from an arrogance that said, look, people's views are changing, society is becoming more inclusive, and if you're not on board, well, you're a dinosaur, and you better join us before you go extinct. And it took concepts from the social sciences that were very complicated and at times subjective and treated them like they were gospel truth, like dogma. And if you dared question them, you were called out. And listen, I believe in theories of anti-oppression and anti-racism, and I think training can be useful. But training alone can't change an organization. And when you're dealing with changing people's minds, the best a training session can do is introduce them to a new perspective and invite them to learn more and maybe connect some of what they heard to their own experience. And unfortunately, many anti-racism trainings didn't do that. And this brings to the other issue of being invitational. Many approaches to talking about identity politics get so focused on one group's particular struggle that they don't do necessarily a great job of connecting those specific concerns to the larger struggle for human emancipation. Sometimes this work can turn into a ranking or a competition around oppression, making some barriers that some folks face seem more important than others. And this, I believe, is why so many young men, particularly young straight men, many who are white, but also young men of color, have increasingly felt that the progressive movement is not for them. That the work around anti-racism and oppression ignored their own suffering and their own struggles, but just named them as oppressors. And so they ended up finding validation, going online, finding these online influencers who told them, oh, guess what? It's actually women's movements or anti-racist movements or progressive movements that aren't for you. And they're actually against you. And so we've seen this growing trend of conservatism globally among young men who just don't feel movements for social justice care about them or center their concerns. And it's imperative then that movements for racial justice do the intellectual work to connect the fight for racial justice to the larger struggle for flourishing for all human beings. And to make it clear, all of our liberation is interconnected. And it's not about winning victories for one marginalized community at the expense of another community. And we can only do that through inviting people into dialogue, not abandoning our values, but also not preaching them as dogma. And this connects to a second lesson that I've observed around class, that anti-racism work in the last decade or so has had a real class blind spot. And maybe not in the way you'd think. It wasn't just that contemporary conversations about anti-racism sometimes missed the linkages to class struggle. It's also the reality that anti-racist ideas, concepts, and language became very much entrenched in the academic language and beliefs of upper middle class, highly educated folks. And in America, we saw that after 2020, there were many studies I saw where white educated Americans were much more likely to say they supported theoretical concepts about structural racism than Black Americans were, than racialized Americans were. And this becomes a problem as our society has been segregated and separated more and more along class and education lines. And so when anti-racism began to seem like a cultural movement of the privileged and educated, when it was full of complex language that excluded many, it started to become associated as a belief of the powerful and the privileged. It started to feel at times like a paternalistic way for upper middle class folks to lecture working class people about their beliefs, about the language they used, all while the cost of living was going up massively and making life harder for working class folks. And so people started to ask, if you progressive folks care about justice so much, how come you seem fine with society always getting better for you and worse for me? How can you think the system is so bad, yet profit off from it so much? And finally, a third lesson that came from this period is that the work is really hard. And having been there at the front lines, sometimes it felt like DEI work that came out after 2020 was set up to fail. Right? All of these organizations made great statements and the leaders stood up and put their hand on their heart and committed to solve racism, to change this embedded social issue that had been plaguing society for hundreds of years. And then they dedicated 1 or 2 staff to it and a tiny budget. I would always say, when big companies decide to do things that are important to them, major changes, like for example, moving an organization to a new software platform, they will spend millions and millions of dollars on change management. Yet, purging an organization of racism, doing something that's way more complicated, got pennies. And not surprisingly, lots of promises were made and people did not see progress. In 2020, you may remember this, over 500 Canadian companies, all the big ones on Bay Street, signed up to the Black North targets around hiring Black staff and Black representation in leadership. Few have achieved those goals, which were modest even then. And in 2025, last year, when the Globe and Mail reached out to those 500 companies to ask about their progress, only 16% of them even bothered to respond. It was clear that these goals were not going to be met anytime soon. So for many champions of racial justice, it felt like we only had a runway of a few years to undo hundreds of years of systemic racism, usually with few resources. And then when the progress just got started, people said, well, you didn't change anything. We've got a new corporate priority, moving on. Exclusive language, blind spots on class, and unrealistic expectations with few resources. All of this helped to undermine the enthusiasm of that 2020 moment. Simultaneously, many of those folks who felt excluded in the anti-racism trainings, who felt their struggles were ignored by identity politics, who became disheartened by the lack of progress, all the language, and the lack of things happening, they started to find homes online. They started to coalesce around thinkers like the Jordan Petersons of the world and began to become part of this anti-DEI reaction that helped propel Donald Trump back to office. Okay, so if those are some of the lessons, well then what is our response? Because the struggle is not over, the work is not done. Well, the first thing I would ask you all to consider as you discuss this commitment to end racism is to be conscious of ensuring your language demonstrating how that you use demonstrates how anti-racism connects to larger struggles for human justice and freedom for all. And I'd say this is where language from faith traditions is so critical. The political far right is very effective in part because it uses both secular and faith-based language to support their ideas. Anti-racism movements today too often ignore faith-based arguments, even if ideas like universal human rights and combating racism have origins in spiritual frameworks and were sustained in the past by movements led by people of faith. And so today we need more spiritual communities speaking courageously in public about their beliefs, reminding the general public that faith is a contested area and there are many, many folks whose faith leads them to socially inclusive worldviews. And a great way to do this, that you're already doing well at Neighborhood, is through interfaith work. It's so powerful when people can see groups working across faith backgrounds to speak out against racism, to make it clear there are universal values shared across faiths about equality and human dignity. Using faith-based language to complement secular anti-racist beliefs can also make the work around anti-racism more accessible. As I mentioned, we need to be aware of our class biases, of our education biases, and understand if people can't understand our ideas, if we can't explain racism and systemic oppression in ways that are relatable and intuitive to people, it's easy for them to write off those ideas as just woke preaching. We also need to invest in this work, both individually and as organizations, and understand that all of us are impacted by biases and stereotypes. All of our organizations can use work to better stand up and be more effective at purging them of racism. But this work will take time and attention. And we have to stop thinking that a one-time training, one workshop is progress. Training can be helpful, sure, but ridding institutions of racist practices can be a long and onerous journey, and we need to truly invest in it and create new practices which will reinforce over and over again for years into the future. And it won't be easy. And it cannot just be outsourced to a single person or a smaller committee. It must be shared work across organizations. Friends, I'm not hopeless. In the shock of what we're seeing right now on our TVs every day, at home and abroad, I believe there is a silver lining. It's forcing us as Canadians to not be so naive as to think, oh, these issues could never happen here. Nor hopefully are we no longer naive enough to still believe that good people can just sit back, and wait for all the racist people to pass on, because the newer generation is just naturally so progressive and open-minded. That's not true. We have to make the case for anti-racism with the new generation, just as previous generations did for us before. We need to reach out to those people, like those young men who are struggling, who feel excluded, who feel like society is stacked against them, and show them that we have compassion for their suffering, and show them that our movement is one for all human beings. But also being clear that the answer to the isolation and anger they're feeling is not, as some of those online voices would tell them, to take out that frustration on women, on newcomers, on immigrants, or others. The answer for all who are feeling excluded right now is to join together in a movement that wants to transform society for all, that wants to speak to the root causes in our economy and our democracy that have allowed inequality to spread so widely. And this means anti-racism champions need to expand their ability to communicate outside of those who just share the same academic background and existing politics, and move from lecturing and calling out to inviting in. And embrace that long-term and sometimes thankless work of understanding other people's positions and perspectives and trying to find common ground where possible. But in closing, I'd say, who better to help us with this work than you folks as Unitarians? Already you are a big tent faith. You have deep expertise in helping people with very different beliefs find a place in one community. And we need a lot more of that in the world. And I can't even claim to fully understand how you all do it, but I know the expertise your tradition has gained in knitting diverse ideas and positions together is something the modern anti-racist movement needs badly. Because we need to grow this movement and grow it in unexpected places. So please, Unitarians, don't turn inwards at this time. As that song says, that little light you have, that little light of inclusion, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, even in the darkness. As you continue to do that internal work, we need to see that light. We need new voices speaking in wider society to give hope to folks who aren't feeling it right now. We need expanded leadership and more thoughtful narratives in the movement to end racism. So, as you grapple with this call over the coming weeks, remember that this city, this country, needs you right now. And I know many people in this congregation already do so much around issues of social justice and anti-racism. But friends, just let me say, the hour is late. And for those of us who want to see an end to racism, we actually need today to redouble our efforts to respond to the moment. I believe truth, justice, and love will win out in the end, but only if we are able to overcome our differences and face the challenges of our times together. Thank you.
Sometimes we have to sing songs that put one foot in front of the other to get us motivated, and sometimes we need to sing songs for peace and for sustaining ourselves. So we're going to sing Hold On that we started the service with. You're all going to become part of the choir. You're going to be the alto section with the altos. And I'll get the rest of the choir to sing some harmonies with you. Why don't we rise if you're willing, just to been sitting for a while. Here's your part. I'll sing 2 phrases. Repeat after me. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Second half goes, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. My dear ones, here comes the dawn. Let's put that together. Hold on. Hold on. My dear ones, here comes the dawn. Hold on. Hold on. My dear ones, here comes the dawn. Hold on. Hold on. My dear ones, here comes the dawn. And really gently for the last time.
Every week we try to do a candle to lift up a Unitarian. Have you ever wondered why our coffee room is called the Cappuccino Room? Well, it's because of Reverend Fred Cappuccino, who turned 100 January 17th. Early on, Fred, a Methodist minister, and his wife Bonnie made the choice to only have 2 children and adopt 19 children from many parts of the world. This brought him in opposition to his white suburban Chicago congregation, some of whom thought that his dark-skinned adoptees lowered the tone of the neighborhood. Fred left the Methodist Church and became a Unitarian minister. He and Bonnie went on to create Child Haven International, a collection of homes in India, Nepal, Tibet, and Bangladesh that care for destitute children. Run on Gandhian principles of equality, it's a model of compassion in this world. My wife, Michelle, has volunteered at one of their homes, and we used to run fundraising dinners at the Hiawatha location of Neighborhood. Happy 100th birthday, Fred. And I light this final candle for all the joys and concerns left unspoken in our hearts. It's time for meditation or prayer. So often we offer meditation, but today with all the tensions to the south and injustices around the world, I'd like to offer a prayer. In the words of Jane Ellen Malton, so often the words fail us, and we do not know to whom or what to pray. We ask for legs that can walk for peace, arms that work for justice, voices that can speak with love, hands that can soothe a feverish brow. By our actions and voices, may our prayers be sent. Amen. Now is the time for our offering. This congregation is a living entity, and like all living things, it must have nurture and sustenance. If you contribute by pre-authorized withdrawals, thank you. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it. If you have found love and acceptance here, if you have found home here, if you have known kindred spirits here, let this offering be a token of gratitude for our common life as we build the common good. Greeters, please bring the baskets up to me when the money is collected. Right. Forgot my place here. I'm going to read the life of our community. Many things happening here at Neighborhood, and just one of them, the Act of Hope small group, obviously concerns about the wildfires, international crises. You can join Dr. Nate Cherish, MD, and Neighborhood's Gwen Showerty in a small group that empowers you to take meaningful action to address the challenges of our world. Meets Wednesday evenings from 7 to 9:15. You can sign up in the Cappuccino room. Let's talk about money. After service today, Neighborhood's annual budget meeting will be held. Starts at about 12:30. All are welcome. Proxy forms are available from the secretary, and there's going to be, Steve's our secretary. There'll be votes on the budget. And at the same time, if you're interested in joining as a member, obviously the budget meeting will have members voting on it, but we have something for you as well. If you're not a member, Membership 101 in Rev Sally's office after coffee time will be today, and then there'll be another part on the February the 8th after coffee hour in which Rev Sally and Pino Spano will, who's the building manager, will do a tour of our building. It's quite an amazing place. Our first open mic of 26 will be on next Saturday between 7:30 and 9-ish. Sign up required, no sign up required, just show up. All ages, performing abilities are welcome. It's a fun time, and it's hosted by our own Allison. Silent No More, Tuesday, February 10th, 7 p.m. on Zoom, a virtual tour of the Mohawk Institute Indian Residential School, facilitated by a cultural interpreter and followed by a Q&A. It would be good to RSVP with us, well, that's Allison's email, UU Warrior, and they would like to see a $15 contribution. Turning Over Stones, a healthy congregation sharing circle, 7 p.m. on Thursday, February 12th, here in Rafos Hall. Vegetarian chili will be provided, and our community aspires to very high ideals. We don't always meet them. Let's talk about it. So bring all the things that you are at the back of your mind. Conversations for such a time as this, discerning our call in this place, in this moment. This is in the Whole Eastminster campus, February the 25th, March 4th, March 11th, March 25th at 7 p.m. I don't know if it's going to be in here or the Eastminster Sanctuary, but I guess there'll be more information. Connecting with the community is our best response to global crisis. Join our free community building event to playfully examine how we might thrive in an apocalypse. They'll be using improv and image theater games. It's February 28th at 1:30 to 5. Nathan Bragg will be facilitating.
Hey, come play.
Thanks, Nathan. Now, there's more stuff, so check the video screen in the Cappuccino room, and of course, our Friday weekly email for more announcements and information about opportunities to connect at neighborhood. And just to put another plug in for the newcomer slips, if you put those in the plate, or you can put it in the basket later, we can sign you up, and you can hear about all the wonderful things that are happening at neighborhood. Next Sunday, February 8th, the message will be writing our next chapter. The speaker will be our own Rev Sally Fitsche. The Spirit Band will be playing, always a fun time, and Deb Bertazon will be the service weaver. And Rev Sally's doing double duty with doing the Time of All Ages as well. So check the screen in the Cappuccino room, and that's about it. Right.
I guess it was about 13 years ago that I first came to Neighborhood, and when listening to the announcements, there was a call for someone to write lyrics for a song. I didn't even know who was going to compose the music, but it seemed like fun, so I wrote the lyrics. And in the intervening 13 years, one of the great pleasures I've had here has been collaborating with Suzanne on doing music and creating art pieces and just working in general. So this song is our most recent collaboration.
And thanks to Steve on guitar for leading us. Actually, pretty much when you rise, song's got some energy. Welcome to join us on the chorus. There's a bit of a chant later. You can join us too. One, two, three, four.
Nobody is free until everybody is free. Nobody
relinquish our chalice for us. So we have a tradition of holding hands, touching shoulders or elbows to end the service, connecting physically as we have spiritually. Today, I leave you with this blessing that poet Amanda Gorman penned as a tribute to Alex Preddy, who was gunned down by ICE. Our greatest threat isn't the outsiders among us, but those among us who never look within. Fear not those without papers, but those without conscience. Know that to care intensively, united, is to carry both pain, dark horror for today and a profound, daring hope for tomorrow. We can feel we have nothing to give and still beloved the world, waiting, trembling to change. If we cannot find words, maybe we can find the will. If we ever lose hope, maybe we never lose our humanity. The only undying thing is mercy, the courage to open ourselves like doors, hug our neighbor, and save one more bright, impossible light. Our circle is now open. Go in peace and love.